How's everyone doing? How's your morning so far? Great conference, right? I love the energy. Super excited. So I think we're going to get started just a tad early. Looks like we have a full house. I am so thrilled to be here with Dr. Katie Russell. It's really my honor to be here. I think, when we first met Katie, I knew there was something magical about her. And so I'm really excited that I get to spend some time telling you all her story and her data journey. So just to get started, my name is Barr Moses. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Monte Carlo. Monte Carlo created a category called data observability. And for anyone who's familiar with what data observability is, I don't know if this has happened to you, where you wake up on a Monday morning and there's a barrage of emails asking you, WTF, why is the data wrong? What's happening with this dashboard? Show of hands, has that happened to anyone here? Some of you. Looks like 80 to 90%. And so we created the category to help data folks like yourself make sure that you can actually trust the data that you have, make decisions based on it, build data products based on it, build machine learning models based on it, in the same way that any engineering team has something like App Dynamics or Datadog to make sure that their infrastructure and applications are reliable. We believe that any data team should have data observability to make sure that their data is trusted and reliable. And many of you here are going through different phases of your journey. Maybe you're very early in your data journey, still figuring out your tech stack. And maybe some of you are later in your journey and really thinking about sort of ownership and incentives. I'm really excited to have Katie here today tell her story for a number of reasons. One, I think the mission and the vision behind Ovo, the company that Katie leads data at, is really interesting. And I also think you have a very intentional and thoughtful journey around empathy and customer empathy. And so excited to hear more about that. Thank you so much for being here, Katie. Do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure, hi Thing. Hi everyone, nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm Katie Russell, Data Director at Ovo. I'll tell you a little bit about Ovo as well so that you understand the context of the stories I'll tell today. By background, I'm a mathematician, and then I've been working in data field for 14 years. And then on to Ovo. So Ovo are one of the largest green energy retailers in the UK. We were founded in 2009, and part of our sustainability strategy is our big mission to try and decarbonise 4 million of our customers' homes and set our own science-based carbon reduction targets as well, all by 2035.
Ah, amazing. So this is the agenda that we'll go through today. So just sort of brief intros. We'll hear about what is data at Ovo, what's the meaning of data. We'll talk a little bit about the tech stack and where does data observability fit into that. And finally, we'll talk about customer impact and customer empathy. So let's get started with your data journey, Katie. Can you tell us a little bit about, how do you think about customer empathy? What does that mean as it permeates throughout all the organization? It sounds like there's also different levels when you say customer empathy, both for you and for Ovo. Yeah. Maybe tell us a little bit more about what that means.
Okay, so from when we founded, we wanted to ensure that customers had a choice with their energy supplier. So there was this thesis of cheaper energy, greener energy, and also a great experience. And that was because that was what customers wanted, right? We've most recently had an energy crisis and cost of living crisis, and we've seen that really come to the fore. So in order to then dig deeper into really understanding what customers wanted, we've always had this pattern of treat data like a product, take part in that virtuous circle of understanding what customers want, iterate on their feedback and improve, and get to a better, more trusted customer experience that way. We've also diversified a lot because although our primary function is serving energy, green energy to our customers, we also want to decarbonise their homes. So what that means is along the way, we've you can see our journey. We've installed the first smart meter, we've installed electric vehicle chargers for our customers, we're offering solar and heat pumps. So you can imagine there's a big proliferation of data there, and part of our mission is to help simplify it for our customers by understanding what they want from us and then offering it to them.
I love the founded in a barn. Sorry, I had to point that out. That's so cute. Can you give us a particular example of customer empathy? What does it actually look like?
Well, I suppose one of the things that was if I'm honest, keeping me up at night after we started to install and roll out smart meters was did this more digital experience for customers actually help anyone save any energy at all, and then actually reduce their bills? And so we set about answering that question, like really analysing the impact of the smart meter rollout, what had that done to customers' bills, which customers had saved energy and why. And then we went one step further and published all of that analysis as a white paper so that people could see our quite forensic detail of analysis and understand which customers we'd been able to help.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have a question that I think many data teams ask themselves: how does data teams, or oftentimes data teams can be a bottleneck for other parts of the organization.
Yeah.
Under this lens, how do you make sure that your team is actually not a bottleneck but empowers other parts of the organization under the lens of customer empathy?
Yeah, I would say we have been a bottleneck. Like at times we've been more of a central team, like with a kind of central data warehouse and then like a central analytics team. But quite early on we saw that there would be value in democratizing analytics skills and opening up safely access to data in a considered way. And so we actually started data democratization quite early, empowering people with skills in which to access and use data, and then continue with that thesis of treat data like a product and try and connect up people using data with those who consume it.
Can I ask you a little bit more about what you mean when you say data as a product? Many people have different definitions for that. What does that mean for Ovo?
Okay, it's a few things. One, it's like a way of working because you're thinking about what's the most valuable thing to do next. Not in the long term, but next. That will help you learn and then iterate and use your data to make the decision of what to do next again. So part of it, I would say, is a way of working. But then there is still the big picture, the big vision of where do we want to get to and how do we sense check that we're getting there along the way.
Yeah, love that. It's a hard question. What do you do next versus what's the long-term vision and how do you map between those?
Yeah, and then I suppose the other thing is lots and lots of customer feedback. And so when you're treating data like a product, you have to know who your data consumers are. And as I say, connect them up with the producers of data.
Yeah, be very intentional about who's using that data product and in what way. Yeah, awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, awesome. You can see the tech stack here. Maybe tell us a little bit about the evolution of the needs. You've been there several years. What does that journey of the tech stack look for you?
Okay. So, well, as I mentioned, we have had a more traditional technology stack, starting out with our energy billing platform and then a traditional data warehouse sat over it with people accessing that data using SQL and then like some dashboards along the top. But as our company strategy evolved and as we started to help customers decarbonize their homes, we brought more and more, I suppose, product lines and therefore systems into our kind of underlying source system estate. We also, as we were installing smart meters for lots of customers, we wanted them to be able to benefit from a real-time experience. So we completely changed the architecture of our energy platform. That was, like, within the architecture of the energy platform, that's Kafka-based, so the services are communicating to each other with Kafka. And then Kafka then formed a really natural backbone for powering a real-time experience. So Kafka was like a really almost obvious choice in many ways because it offered that real-time streaming capability of data, and that's one of the things that helps you power customer empathy really well, because if you understand what's happening in real time, you can start to act on it in real time rather than in a kind of batchy way. And then actually being able to analyze, build data models on top of data meant that we also needed to stream all of that data in the live living brain of Kafka into something more suitable for analytics, something that a SQL expert could use. And so we use BigQuery, part of the Google stack for that, and then that integrates super nicely with lots of other tooling.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit on the business side, how do you marry sort of the teams, what are your team's KPIs? How did you choose them? And how do those match sort of the broader organization or Ovos priorities?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Because when you're back as a more central data team, your KPI is almost like when did things last break, and you just want to cross off the 10 days back to a 0 again each time it breaks. No, we kind of turn that around because we're really use case led in the data team. We think about how we can be reactive to business needs and deliver what they need, but while also building our underlying capability. But the way that I then communicate the overall value of the team and align with KPIs is actually just to talk about the pounds benefit and then kilowatt hour tons carbon benefit of our team's work. And I roll all of that up and then I communicate it back to stakeholders. And it's quite helpful because it makes my team quite defendable, like for what we need to invest in, because you can see, oh, well, they've had this much pound impact and they've had this much carbon impact.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you literally sort of accumulate on a per customer basis and can track that back to the data team and say, this is sort of what the data team has contributed this month or this year to the business, and track that back to carbon. Yeah.
And wherever possible, I try and do that as an incremental value add. So it's truly incremental and it's like actually from our team's effort. And you need lots of data and testing to be able to do that, because otherwise you don't know what it would have been without you.
Yeah. When in your journey did you develop that? Because I know lots of data leaders are being asked for their ROI, but actually being able to tie that requires the investment, like you mentioned, in terms of attribution and measurement. So when in the journey did you do that, and sort of what was the instigation for that?
I had it on one particular data product first that was more tied to like helping customers improve their underlying account health, like getting the smart meter or setting up their payments. And so I could actually calculate it for that one data product, and it was working well. So then I just scaled it out to the others. Like when on the timeline, it was probably about 2021, and then for all data products towards the end of last year.
Nice. Make it seem so easy. I just calculated for one and then scale it out. But I actually think that's great advice, right? Like if you can prove it for one data product and then scale it from there. But it's actually, like I would say, pretty rare for organization to be able to tie in such a clear way. I think that's really impressive.
That particular data product, we weren't sure if we should build it on-house or if we should buy it in as a capability. So we'd done like RFI, RFP type thing. And the vendors that had come and pitched to us were really good at articulating the value of their product. And I was like, well, I should do this too. So I kind of copied the format and the drivers, and it worked because I aligned them to our own business drivers and just tried to be as good as what a third-party vendor would be.
Yeah, it's amazing. So tell us a little bit about how you think about stakeholder management, another topic that lots of folks are thinking about. You have various stakeholders. How do you sort of position your team as more of sort of, to your point, like value added versus like a service organization? How do you think about that?
Yeah, it's tricky because because my team covers like all of what we do at Ovos. So it's like a big operation with a call center, energy industry. What else? Like helping vulnerable customers, obviously customer experience, our app and web, also growth, and then these new products like heat pump solar. So there's like a lot. So I actually like care a lot about stakeholder management and try and be a good storyteller for the team. But actually, in terms of sharing the load, I find business partnering really helpful. So I don't know, I read about it when I first joined Ovo, actually, because I didn't really like the centricity of the team, and I wanted to be able to link them up better with the business. I think I read about it in like an HR context, HR business partners.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just like partner people up. And I've fallen back on that approach quite a few times.
Oh, interesting.
It's a little bit more flexible than a big structural change.
Yeah. And who do you see as the main stakeholders that you sort of spend the most time with?
Can I say the customers?
Yeah, that's a great answer.
It's a bit introspective to say we spend a lot of time looking at data. But yeah, of course, like across the business, it will be our, your typical, like your chief commercial officer, your chief operational officer. But yeah, the customers and the data, and like our job as the data experts is actually to use that data to help inform them.
Yeah, that's good. Tell us a little bit about how your team is structured to support that.
Well, the use of the data and then the data platform tooling is like two halves. So there's this data platform with the capability to help other teams connect their streaming data in Kafka into BigQuery. So my team maintains a lot of tooling to help teams use and own and manage their data. So that's one side of my team is data platform tooling, and then the other is data science, which is broadly split into are they aligned to commercial data products or operational data products?
What's the difference between commercial and operational? How do you define commercial and operational?
Via the stakeholders, like via who's in the org, and then what the KPIs are. So commercial is more like growth and what's the word, like the advancement of customers who are taking on that zero carbon journey. That's like commercial, and then operational is, are our customers happy? If they got a good experience, are we handling their calls quickly? Are we getting those smart meters installed well? That's the difference between the two.
Cool. And tell us a little bit more about the tech stack. Why did you make the decisions here? How has it evolved? How did you choose partners?
It was getting quite hairy.
Never happens. I don't know what you're talking about. Very straightforward decisions.
We had quite a lot of data because of all these extra acquisitions and new product lines and this desire to be so data-driven all the time. We were getting a lot of data. We used Slack to communicate, and I was noticing all the tribal knowledge we had. I was actually, I started a document where I copied and pasted every time an analyst asked someone else in the community, where is this data? I called it Where is the Data? And it was meant to be the document that justified why we needed to invest in discovery tooling, but it ended up being the data Bible, and I was horrified. I was like, no, this should be done with tooling. Like, do not use my Word document, no matter how well you formatted it. So yeah, I wanted to solve the problem of people finding data first, because they were spending too much time on it. And so invested, like, got a product manager. You know, I love product managers. Got a product manager looking at the data discovery problem, and that really helped.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the experience of maybe the part data observability. Why did you think you needed, or how did you end up thinking that you need data observability? And
I didn't. We have a bigger strategy.
you didn't have it all planned before, and you knew this.
I kind of knew the outcomes, so I knew that we wanted to empower all of those users that we'd been upskilling in SQL to actually know where the data was, hence data discovery, to be able to trust their data, and then to be able to use it in a really best-in-class way. So the data discovery tooling. Sorry, and I should say it's Acryl Data Hub is what we use for data discovery tooling. It's cool. It's really nice. You see lineage from Kafka to BigQuery, and then to whatever dashboards you use at the end. It's lush. But yeah, that same product manager that had brought in the Data Hub tooling after reviewing what was out there, started talking about data observability. And for me, it was just further away in my mind, this thing about trust. But he talked to Monte Carlo. And we did a POC with I still have a fairly central data warehouse team, and when the data breaks for them, they have to really chase and find out what the upstream issues are with the data. It's quite time consuming for them, and they honestly loved it. So although I hadn't commissioned anyone to go out and look for it, I was just bowled over because they had found it so easy to integrate, and it makes sense, doesn't it? If you can spot the problems in your data feeds, like a missing data or a spike, before the users have told you. And we like the fact that it was Slack integrated, because it made it easier. That tribal knowledge, the helpful community I mentioned, it made it easier for actual data owners to get on and fix their data more quickly.
And so, does that document still exist? Where is the data?
It does, but now it has a link at the top that says, don't use this, use these tools.
That's great. I remember our first conversation when I met Katie, one of her first questions to me was, what is your sustainability strategy as a company? And I think you were the first that asked me that, and I did not have a good answer for that. I was like, wow, we need a better answer. So I loved that you were pushing us in that way. It was very cool. So let's shift gear and talk a little bit about sort of the value that you're creating for your customers through your tech stack and through observability, but also more broadly. Tell us a little bit about sort of, once you have sort of implemented, your thought around sort of data trust, how has that actually created value? Do you guys it sounds like you're pretty thoughtful, intentional about how you measure value. What are some of the ways in which you're actually tracking that?
Well, the big one in terms of our long-term value is that carbon impact. So if you're interested in it, it's called Plan Zero, our sustainability strategy. And so we have this commitment to go back and track, against our science-based reduction targets, are we actually, getting there with the EVs we've installed or heat pumps we've installed, things like that. So that's the overall big one. But did you mean for me and the team?
Both.
Okay.
Or whatever you'd like.
Oh. Say the question again for me.
How do you think about so I think you mentioned sort of the value sort of at the broader company level. When you thought about sort of, let's choose data observability in particular,
Yeah.
how do you measure the value of that? Is that like time saved or resources saved? How do you think about that?
I think that's another tricky one, isn't it? Because with data observability, it's kind of hidden.
I like the tricky question.
Yeah, because it kind of prevents. Like I know that we've got the tool running on like about 2,000 tables. I'm interested to know how quickly teams adopt it. So like a good number of teams, and then how many incidents we're tracking on it. But in a way, unless you know what the impact of having prevented that incident was, it's actually then hard to ascribe value back to that particular tool. I remember when I was looking to justify more investment in the data platform, I had a stat. I checked it with our analysts and data scientists that they were spending up to 50% of their time finding and then cleaning data and making it fit for purpose.
Yeah.
So all of that kind of opportunity cost of people spending their time on the kind of basic data best practice and management principles was our like justification then for investing more in data platform tooling. And then the opportunity cost is because they could be spending time building those data products that have got that big kind of £1 million, multi-million value that we offer as a business. And so we could either get to that faster or do more.
Yeah, awesome. So let's dive more into the customer impact. I love these. Can you sort of talk us through some of this?
Okay. Well, last winter was a really tricky one for our customers. Prices were really, really spiking. The wholesale price of gas was spiking, and electricity tends to follow gas as like a secondary heating source. It was getting very cold, actually. And so customers were calling us a lot because they were worried about being able to pay their bills. And at that time, no one knew what the government was going to do either, whether or not there would be some intervention. So we're a data team, so we really wanted to help with that problem of vulnerable customers calling in. We wanted to make sure that no vulnerable customers waited longer than they needed to on the very busy phone lines. So we were able to use, there's something called a priority services register you can sign up for if you're a more vulnerable customer. And although actually you can sign up and be on the priority services register if it's something like over 75 or have a kid under 2.
Okay.
Under 1. So like even all of the Rolling Stones would qualify, and so would have Prince William until Louis had his latest birthday. So you needed to dig a little bit further under the data to find out who was really a vulnerable customer. Wow. And then we could prioritize them in the call queues, and then we'd set up a specific support package for our customers. And so again, the data helped us prioritize people towards the support package. It was called the Empathy Hub, actually, where the particular group of like phone lines that people would be diverted to. And we also had across our wider business, because we're an organisation as well, like we're a machine. We also rolled out empathy training for all of our employees, and we were again able to use the data and track who had completed this customer empathy training, so that we could get to our targets. So setting targets using data and measuring them, and then also using data for customer good by supporting vulnerable customers, knowing who they were, and digging under the hood of the data, because the Rolling Stones probably didn't need the support on the phone lines, but more vulnerable customers would. So yeah, that's number 1.
Yeah.
What's number 2? Data-driven Derek. This was in the national news just last week. I mentioned smart meters quite a lot, and I didn't explain what they were. What a smart meter does for you is, rather than you having to manually read your meter and submit your readings on a monthly basis, and if you don't, then your energy company has to estimate, and then eventually it catches up. A smart meter does it for you automatically. It takes your energy readings every half hour, so you've got electricity and gas. Data-driven Derek. He was in the national news. He worked out his own personal cost-benefit scenario for solar panels. Took advantage of great solar rates and is a happy customer. I just love it that he was empowered to figure all of that out with the data that he got through the app. He works in IT. He's a retired IT worker, so I think something in him spoke to me. We actually need to make sure no customers are left behind. Not everyone actually wants to do all that analysis for themselves, so we need to use data to help.
Not
people
everyone
along.
is as data-driven as data-driven Derek is.
Exactly. But no, it's just like a really lovely story, and they're in the press a fair bit. That customers are empowered to be rewarded for actually making energy efficiency measures in their homes. So that's a real nice one. What's the last one?
Collective change.
Oh, right. Well, not everybody can or wants to do these big things like solar panels, heat pumps.
Yeah.
And so it's just like a number of smaller things that you can do that still add up to making a big impact. But then you need the data, right, to actually track what's everybody been doing. So we've got something where if you shift your energy usage off peak time.
Okay, tell us more about that.
I don't know how much more I can talk about. I think if you're an over-energy customer and you have a smart meter, that means we've actually got the data and we can understand whether or not you've successfully shifted your usage off the time when the grid is busiest. If you have, you get a reward.
Yeah.
Yay. And it's only a little thing, but that's the kind of thing that
makes
all
a big
adds up.
difference if all of us do it. Yeah. Awesome. Sounds great. Tell us a little bit more about what's next. What are some of the initiatives that you're working on looking forward?
Well, I mentioned data-driven Derek and how he's able to do his own cost-benefit analysis of things like solar panels. But as I mentioned, I'd love to be able to help more customers do that. Winter is coming again. It's going to get colder again. So again, just our kind of customer support package. We've been looking at things like pricing structures and standing charges and seeing how we can help customers with that. In the data world, more for me on the data platform side, I mean, data science is involved in those other things. I've been trying to lead on this data mesh strategy, right? This kind of federation of data ownership, connecting up data producers and data consumers. I would really like to better understand our most important data as well and see where we can invest further in that and what more we can do with it, particularly with generative AI. Yeah, that actually gives you a real use case and a real benefit for investing more in your data. Because we're a big customer service company, so generative AI gives us some pretty obvious use cases there. Quite a lot, but all of it depends on the whole machine working, of one, being able to prioritize where's your most important data and your most important use cases, and then have you got the tooling in place that means you can actually empower people to play their own part.
Yeah, it's a long journey for the data mesh, but exciting. Awesome. Maybe one or two last questions. What's one tip that you have for data teams that are hoping to achieve some of these results or some of the sort of customer empathy that you mentioned? How do you actually drive that, or what's one thing that you would leave folks with?
I would say start quite small. You know how I mentioned that big benefit number we're proud of. We only started on one data product, so if you can start small but still think big, have your big picture of whatever it is, infusing data intelligently in everything you do. That's the thing I quote all the time back at Ovo. But then also try and scale fast. So that's almost basics, isn't it? I'm probably teaching you how to suck eggs, but just keep going back to that basics of almost like product management.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in that, forget that. Amazing. This has been so fun. Is there anything else? I do have an icebreaker to end on that I'd love to ask you. I think data people have a hidden love for karaoke songs, and so I have to ask you, what's your favorite karaoke song to end?
I used to do well on, was it called SingStar? I'm showing my age. Yeah, I used to do particularly well on a song called I Think We're Alone Now. I get a high score on that, so now that's become my favourite.
Nice.
But mostly I don't do karaoke at the moment. I've got two tiny twin boys. They're under 2, so I'm singing Doa Dear every night.
That works as well. Awesome.
How about you? Have you got a favorite karaoke song?
Great question. For folks who know me, I'm big on Backstreet Boys, which is an embarrassing fun fact. So any Backstreet Boys songs, I'll be on stage.
Can you sing it?
No, I don't think you want to. I might be fired for that.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Katie. I really love the story. And really congrats on everything that you do. I think we were talking about this. I think data teams do so much and oftentimes don't actually get sort of credit for all the hard work. And it's really amazing to see how you all are making an impact, both on your organization and at Ovo more broadly. I'm really fortunate to partner with you. If folks have questions for Katie, you should actually be at booth 420, so feel free to follow us there. And then one last thing, I promised Katie we're going to take a selfie with you all, so don't go. I'm going to take a selfie, and then we'll end.
Which way around?
With the audience.
Okay, all right.
Okay, say cheese. Awesome.
Cute. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Katie.